Hi, everybody. Welcome to Common Ground Conversations again. And we had a little chat about taking a turn, a little bit of a turn with the Common Ground Conversations moving
hmm
forward. So, JoNeil, you want to give them a sense of where we're at and what we're doing?
Yes, and Happy New Year to everybody and
Yes,
all of that. And we were having the conversation, and that doesn't mean we're not going to shift back and forth, but we've spent pretty much
right.
the first year talking about within families, within friends, sort of that type of relationship. We've talked about Uncle Albert 1,000 times over the last year. And so we thought, a lot of people are still struggling with these kind of conversations in their work or in their career or in,
Yes.
and or in a club that they belong to or something
Or some kind of
outside.
professional organization. Yep.
Oh, yeah. And so outside of that family dynamics, there's still a lot of the same principles. We still want to take the war out of our words and we still want to do that. But it differs slightly in that kind of environment. So as we were prepping for this, Bonnie was saying, I got the perfect example. It happened to me the other day. So we're going to let her start off with her example, and it's perfect for what we're talking about.
Yes. So it was a mixed meeting. Some of us were virtual, some were face to face. And the person who was running the meeting asked me a question. I began to answer the question, and one of the people in the room with the person who had asked the question went like this and started
Yeah.
waving me off, and basically saying, "We don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about this."
Yeah.
And the person who was sitting beside the person who blew kind of looked at her like, what is going on here? So I paused, took a breath,
hmm
and
hmm
then finished saying what I was saying to the person who had asked the question. I made a judgment call at that point that it wasn't going to go well to confront what had just happened in the meeting itself. So
hmm
I elected to address it the next day one on one with her as
hmm
opposed to in front of everybody. But
hmm
should that happen again, I would be inclined to address it in the meeting itself.
Okay. Okay. So how what you did?
What I did was, and I wanted the paper trail. I did not
Yeah.
want to not, so a phone call or face to face to me didn't feel like a good fit because I wouldn't then have a paper trail.
Sure.
Um, there's some potential here. This person could choose to end my contract. And so
Yeah.
I felt like it was important to have documentation. So I sent an email that basically said I wanted to follow up on what had happened the evening before. If there was more that she felt she needed to say to me, it would be good for us to set up a time to do that.
hmm
And I made the point that I expected to be treated with more respect than that.
hmm hmm
I got back a one liner. Thanks for your input.
Oh, you didn't tell me the end of the
No,
story
I
when we
didn't
were.
tell you the end of the story. That is fine
Yeah.
because when I was doing my response, I was coming from the place of it really doesn't matter how she reacts. It
Okay.
merely matters that I say what I need to say.
hmm So
However she handles it is not my problem.
let's put some context too into that conversation, because you said this person had some control over a contract. So it wasn't like it was the power dynamics were equal kind of a thing. Or
No, I'm an independent contractor and
yeah,
she would have the power to end my contract.
yeah. And again, going back to your amygdala went, what the heck is she doing kind of thing?
Yep, so
And
we
you
go,
and that's a key we want every no matter where the conversation is going on, that cleansing breath, tapping, whatever, in the moment, because your amygdala went off on its own. You had no control over that.
right. And having had enough provocative conversations in the past over 60 plus years of living, I know that what's going to come out of my mouth next is probably not going to be
Yeah.
effective if I don't settle myself back down.
hmm
What's the advantage to being on a Zoom call is you can do some tapping without
hmm
anybody knowing you're
Knowing it.
doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But recognizing that she had said something or her actions were a threat, that neuroception, your amygdala
Right,
perceived that.
right. Yeah,
as a
literally
threat.
she couldn't hurt me. I was on
No,
Zoom. She can't, but that part of your brain doesn't understand that.
yeah, and that's that concept of neuroception. That's what the amygdala does. It's the scanning, it's
Hmm.
looking. And when you heard that, and so what was interesting is we were going through a list of a couple little strategies, and the one I said this one, decline the emotional invitation. And that was what Bonnie responded, goes, oh, I got that one going on right now.
Right.
So
So, right, they're oftentimes baiting you. And see that image in your head. They're casting a line, the worm drops into the water. Don't be the fish.
yeah, yeah.
Don't be the fish.
And in the moment, were you able to separate, her actions from her intent? Or were they kind of, could you feel what was going, could you get a sense?
No. I had no idea why what
Okay.
was happening. And I think
Okay.
that's also why the woman beside her went like this, because she
Yeah.
had no idea. I don't
Okay.
think anybody in the room really did. But after the fact, I came up with all kinds of thoughts. Like
Okay.
she's exposed all day, every day to someone who's highly reactive. And that might be
Oh,
beginning to rub off on her.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Because you know how they always say we can predict your income based on the five people you hang around with
Yeah.
the most. The same for your emotional well-being. We can predict your emotional well-being based on the five people you hang around the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And that applies to all kinds of our faith, and we also know if your family life is raw or something's going on, your capacity is diminished at times.
Yes.
And so I think
And
this,
on that one, even if you're willing to say to other people, I had a friend who did this at one point. I was having a crisis in my life. She was having a crisis in her life. I did not know that, but she said to me, I am sorry. I don't have the bandwidth to be available to you right now. I
yeah,
was so grateful that
yeah,
she
yeah.
said it out loud.
Right, right. And that's where I think some of the tension, we're talking about this tension that happens in these conversations is oftentimes somebody says something, we hear something else, we interpret it in one
We
way,
interpret it.
in
Yes.
in a way that has run through all, a gambit of, the communication. It's been sorted, it's been processed, and it comes out in a way that may or may not have been the intended
Right. And we
purpose.
have filters. So
Yes.
if we have a filter in here that nobody likes me anyway, or I'm doomed to fail, or whatever our filter is, regardless of how the message is intended, we're going to process it in a way that's not healthy for us or for the situation.
Hmm. So, if you were an onlooker in that situation watching this, what would be sort of those nuggets that you would have dropped into to the Bonnie that was going through that situation?
I think the most valuable thing that I could do and did do was take the pause,
Yeah.
because then I could back up. And one of my newer underlying beliefs is I don't know what anybody else is dealing with.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can make assumptions till the cows come home
Yeah.
about why she lost it in that
Hmm.
meeting.
Hmm.
If I assume it must be me, I've said something wrong. Oh my goodness, I
Hmm.
feel terrible. If I believe there's something going on with her,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's not my job to figure it out, but I want to have a response here, not a reaction.
Hmm. And that's one of those outward mindset principles of seeing people as people. When we don't always see people as people. We see them as an agitator, as Uncle Arthur, or as somebody who's this, or somebody's that, or somebody is this. And it really takes, and I'm going to use the word discipline. I think you were very disciplined in that moment, where you said, okay, this isn't where this needs to happen.
Right.
This is something that could go offline and should go offline. So I give you
Yes.
credit for that discipline.
Yes. And I think another piece of it is also try to step ahead just a little bit. Is anything good going to come out of you trying to address it right then and there?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
not, and sometimes I will even do that in the moment. Let's take this offline. Let's move forward with our meeting. Let's do what we got to do. Or sometimes I said this to my sister the other day. It's late in the evening. I don't
Yeah.
have the bandwidth for this right now. So can we
Hmm.
wait until tomorrow when we're both fresh
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
try it again?
Because there is such a thing as decision fatigue. That's that's
Yeah,
very real. That's very real. And it does apply to our interactions. Again, we're taking this sort of into a work or a different than family scenario, but again, the principles still apply. The principles still apply. And you truly felt like I have the option of not completing this cycle here. Would
right.
there have been a time where you felt like it had to be addressed then? It couldn't wait. What might that have looked
Yes.
like? Okay.
Um, what that would have looked like is, let's see, the bulk of the people who were in that meeting know me and know me very well.
Mm,
So I felt comfortable allowing the time. If it were a brand new group of people who didn't know me from Adam,
hmm.
I might have felt the need to put a little more structure around it in the moment because, again, they're all going to walk away from the meeting. If I just choose to address with her after the
Yeah.
fact, they're never going to know what happened. And I wouldn't want them to perceive it as Bonnie just got shot down and she allowed it to happen. She allowed herself to be squelched, blah, blah, blah. Didn't want that. But
Yeah.
they know me well enough to know that that wasn't likely to be what was going to happen.
And again, that is another thing that we can rest on too. Sometimes we know the scenario well enough to know what might be the appropriate response. And again, we're taking the emotions and actually during the pause, you're not just doing nothing. You're actually saying, okay, what is my best option in this situation? Where might I achieve a mutually beneficial outcome? Where might I, or how might I achieve the goals of this meeting? So you
Yep.
aren't just pausing for the sake of pausing. There's some work that's going on
No.
in the pause.
Right. And it can be jumping all the way to the end of it. When we get off this call, how do I want people perceiving me?
Mhm.
I don't want them perceiving me as reactive and I jumped back down her throat.
Yeah,
I want them perceiving me as cool and calm and maybe a little nonplussed because where the hell did that come from? But
yeah,
um that I wasn't reactive.
yeah. I think that's key. I think
Yeah.
that's key. And I think if everybody, the one takeaway from this, we would hope, is that you realize, and this is something I think I live by, there's always a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You might not
Mm-hmm.
like the choice, it might be difficult, it might be hard, and all those kind of things. But in that moment, you had a choice and you had enough, I'm going to say practice, but maybe that's not the right word.
That's a big piece of it, yes.
Okay, enough practice in these kind of scenarios to know, and in your head you kind of weighed, do I say something now or do I say something later? And all of
Mm-hmm.
that, and that's why it's kind of like athletes rehearse in their heads, not
Mm-hmm.
the negative, I'm going to rip their face off kind of thing, but the practice, how might this look, how might this
Right.
achieve a mutual benefit?
And interestingly, they've done research on that where they had one group of athletes literally physically practice the activity and another
Hmm.
group of athletes just rehearse in their mind. Performance was relatively similar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your
And
mind
as
is
it
a very powerful tool. Use it as a tool, not as a
mhm.
weapon. Not as
No,
a weapon.
no. And so, because you've had a lot of practice with some of these dicey situations, and I think if folks are in leadership or they're in an organization or they might not know the players, you said a couple really important things that this group knew knew you well,
Mm-hmm.
knew
Mm-hmm.
what your values, how you responded. They
Yes.
also know what your outcomes are, what you do. And I think that may have given you strength, maybe in that situation. I'm use the word strength, but maybe that's not the right word.
Well, and also I think that you hit something really important there, JoNeil, which is when you are a part of a group, try not to be just the fringe member of the group. You know,
Mm,
I've got so much going on. I fly in 5 minutes late for the meeting and I leave 5 minutes early, and I never get to know the people there. take the time to get to know the people in the groups that you're a part of. Really get to know them. Take someone to lunch, meet someone for
Mm.
coffee. You may think, well, that's just a waste of my time. I've got so
No,
much
it's
going
not.
on. No, no, no. It's all about the relationships.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
all about the relationships.
there's the four stages, the forming, storming, norming, performing parts of a group, any kind of group, and then how you exit the group as well. But that's sometimes that storming piece, people get really uncomfortable and think it's a bad thing, and it not necessarily is a bad thing.
Part of the process, oftentimes.
Yeah.
And some of the best groups I've belonged to have been the ones where there was enough foundation there that when something untoward happened, someone mismanaged something, someone made a big mistake, someone said something in front of somebody they shouldn't have, blah, 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 it could actually be addressed in the group directly and
Yeah.
appropriately because
Yeah.
it was safe enough to do so.
Right. Right. And a lot of times that takes time. That takes time, and that time being together and working
Yes.
on issues.
And I think a corollary to that is there are some circumstances where it is not going to be safe, either because of
Oh,
who the people are who are there, they're just not stand up people, or because of the structure of that circumstance. If it's a
yeah.
dog eat dog kind of thing, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to do the buddy buddy thing all that much.
No, which then gets to, what is the goal of this particular interaction, this goal of this group, and having, oftentimes the goals or the outcomes take precedent. How do we get there? You don't get there a bunch of different ways. But if everybody is on the same page where that's concerned, it's a little bit easier.
Yes. You know what else is really interesting? And I've been observing this and thinking, this is so interesting. The older I get, I mean, when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I was driven,
Yeah.
driven,
Yeah.
accomplish, succeed, make it happen, do more than anybody else, blah, blah. The older I get, the more
Yeah.
that kind of falls away
Yeah.
and other things come into the forefront.
Sure. 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 Well, I think we got a good conversation where this is concerned. So let's package it so people can have these nuggets. To me, the first nugget would be when you're in a situation that starts to feel icky, or whatever word we want to use, recognize that your nervous system has acknowledged that that's danger, that amygdala hijack. And whether it's like stopping, taking a breath, saying, I might need to go on a Zoom, you probably couldn't say, I need to go to the bathroom, I'll be right back. But
I've
if
done it.
if whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
whatever that break or that pause
Mhm.
or that, I had a gal I worked with, her name is Pam Porter. Whenever we would get into these sticky discussions, she'd always do this. Hmm. We always knew that was like her way.
That was her
And
pause.
however
Yes.
long it took her to get off some of us would wait and wait. She finally got, but that was and all of us who knew her finally got to the point where we knew that that was her signal. Like, this is more, I got to think, give me a second. But
Yes. Yes.
whatever yours looks like,
And do
and
not be afraid to ask for it. I need
yeah,
to think about that overnight. I will get back to you tomorrow on that.
right. Because that goes back to decline the invitation for urgency,
Yeah.
for
No.
urgency. Unless it's life or death, it can wait. It can
Hmm.
pause. You can take some time.
Yes. No matter how frantic the other person seems to be. That's not
Exactly.
your deal.
Mm-mm. You're not. So, do you have a takeaway? We kind of covered a bunch of things.
I can imagine our peeps out there going, yeah, but what if and what? Feel free to ask us questions.
Yeah,
Put them in the feed. We'll talk about it because a lot of these sometimes it is a situation that really is where you're hamstrung
yeah,
and you're going to have to make as good a decisions as you can make given the less than desirable circumstances. We get
perfect.
that. We totally get that.
Hmm.
Do the best you can do with it. And if you
Yeah.
need some guidance on it, holler.
Both of our contact information is in the description below. So again, we thank you, everybody who's followed us for this past year and into this new year. And we will still continue on common ground conversations because that's what
Absolutely.
makes the world a better place.
Yes. And if you have a circumstance, maybe it's not Uncle Henry and maybe it's not work, maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
Put it in the feed. We'll
Yeah.
or email
I
one
mean,
of us. We'll be
you
happy
know,
to address it.
yeah. When you hear people about, oh, my youth group or my women's circle at church or the PTA or the,
Hmm.
a career
The
closet,
neighbors,
the
the whatever.
neighbors.
Yes.
We live in a world with other people.
Lots of them.
Yeah. And so I guess what that is one of our missions is to help one another, have a more peaceful existence while
Yes.
existing with others.
Yes. Yes. Allowing what
Yeah.
is.
Allowing what is. Well, thank you
Yes.
again. Thank
Awesome.
you, Bonnie.
Thank you. This
And we'll,
was good. All right.
and
We'll
we'll,
see you soon.
yes.